I'd like to call the meeting to order for Board of Supervisors work session. Very brief introduction and talk to you about what we're planning on trying to do tonight. We're going to be offering up people the opportunity to talk about the things that we're talking about. And if you've got a copy of the agenda, that's great. You'll be able to see it. And we only asked a couple of things. One is, if you want to talk, please be respectful for those that are around you. If you want to have an extended period of talk, please tell us that you want to do. That's what you want to do. If you are agreeing to something that the previous person has said before, just say, I agree with everything the person ahead of me has said. And we don't waste everybody's time. Our time is valuable. It's 7 o'clock in the evening. We want to try to get out before 2 o'clock in the morning. We can talk a long time. I know I can personally, but I'm going to try not to do that. Other than that, we want to start the presentation this morning with an overview of the Economic Development Authority and its activities. Ed Daly and Jeffrey Brown is going to be doing that for us. Ed, are you going to be first? Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. We appreciate this opportunity to be here. You know a lot about the EDA. We've been fortunate that you've been coming out to our meetings and learning about it. You know, when you run a marathon, the first thing you have to do is get on the track. And we are on the track. And we are moving forward. And Mr. Brown is our vice chair and chair of our communications committee. So he has a presentation that he's going to do now, and then we'll be back happy to discuss any other items.
Do you want to just leave it out?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's good to see you all.
Thanks for coming, Jeff.
Thank you. We appreciate having this work session to discuss the future of the Front Royal Warren County EDA. Economic development planning should be a continued dialogue about the needs of our community and how best to address those needs. The primary focus of EDA is to help existing businesses grow, attract new businesses that will benefit our community, and create good-paying jobs for residents. Local businesses currently account for millions of dollars of annual taxable revenue in Front Royal and Warren County, and represent over a third of the local government budgets. Only 47% of our residents work locally. By increasing commercial tax revenues and creating good-paying jobs, the tax base for community development will grow, and residents can enjoy a higher quality of life by working closer to home. To accomplish these goals, we must address two main issues tonight. How do we propose to deal with EDA's debt and its ongoing operating expenses? And when is EDA going to stimulate business growth in Front Royal and Warren County? Well, let's start with the debt. We have loans and lines of credit totaling just under $41 million that were taken out for economic development projects in the town and county. $12 million of those loans are for town projects that we're carrying for them. We've got good interest rates on these loans, 5 at 3% and 3 at under 4.5%. We're negotiating extensions where possible to lower the per month debt service and to give us time to come up with viable solutions about how best to proceed. On one loan, we've extended the due date and reduced the interest rate, saving over $67,000 a year in debt service. These savings will go to reduce the IT federal loan and decrease future interest expenses on that loan. As of today, the monthly debt service is a fixed cost of $150,500 every month. IT Federal is paying $42,000 of that fixed cost. If nothing changes. Nothing changes. No sale of EDA properties. No payment by the town of the nearly $8.8 million it owes EDA for financing the police department, or money it owes on any other projects it is running through EDA. And no settlements in our civil suits. EDA will become insolvent in March. The good news is that as properties sell, the town pays its debt to EDA, and assets are recovered. The monthly debt service on the fixed cost will decrease dramatically. Being insolvent is not the same thing as being bankrupt. It means that we can't immediately pay all of our bills. As you know, EDA cannot go bankrupt by law. But if existing loans and lines of credit aren't paid on time, the banks that hold those debts can foreclose and sell EDA property. Foreclosure is the real concern that we have, because it takes away our ability to find the right kind of businesses for those properties and will hurt the ability of the town and county to get loans in the future. We're doing everything we can to prevent that outcome, but we are going to need help. So what is EDA doing to lower the debt? First, we're aggressively marketing our properties to potential buyers who will bring jobs and commercial revenue to the town and county. We have a contract on 404 Fairground Road, and there are deep negotiations for the sale of 2 other properties. And we have listings and aggressive marketing on all the rest of them. We're negotiating with the town for it to pay verified expenses for the police department. The police department alone accounts for 24% of our debt service. We're also preparing invoices for other town projects. Most of the embezzlement, unfortunately, occurred in town projects. As a result, invoicing for other projects has been slowed to ensure that only legitimate expenses are billed. The town needs to recognize its responsibilities and make good on its promises. Third, we're actively negotiating settlements for the return of assets in the civil suits brought on behalf of EDA. These include the suite of Jennifer McDonald cases and small business USDA loans that are overdue. Cases that can't be settled may have to go to trial, then assets can be recovered. EDA has rental property and generates rental income from those offices, a building and a grazing site. We project over $70,000 in rentals this year, which doesn't include offices we're prepping to rent out at our Kendrick Lane facility. They can generate an additional $59,000 per year. So to summarize our debt strategy, it is to simplify what we're doing, what we have to deal with, and to create breathing room until long-term solutions can be figured out. Our best estimate, though, is that even with selling or renting EDA properties, recovering available assets, and the town meeting all of its obligations, we will fall short of what is needed to pay off the loans and lines of credit. If every EDA property were sold for its assessed value, we'll still be around $8 million short. So we will need county help for the foreseeable future. The long-term payback it will be in new economic development and increased commercial revenues. So I'd like to turn to the budget next and just offer a short appraisal of it. We released a preliminary operating budget for 2020 last week. The preliminary budget is right around $40,000 a month, and it cuts out unnecessary expenses while reflecting savings from renegotiated contracts. The budget assumes no EDA properties are sold this year. So it's a worst case budget. As properties are sold, insurance, maintenance, and other utilities will decrease. We will then be able to reduce our fixed costs, and along with reducing the fixed costs that we have in terms of the loans, we'll be in a better position to renegotiate them. Where are we heading on economic development issues in Front Royal and Warren County? As a starting point, even the best plan depends on having a well-organized team that has the experience and motivation to make it happen. We've all learned the dangers of having power and information concentrated in a small group of people without adequate accountability or transparency. Never again. The resulting crisis at EDA brought in new board members, and now the board has skill sets in business, construction, project management, municipal management, finance, law, marketing, and communications. Doug Parsons, our executive director, has extensive county and state economic development experience. And as important, he has great connections with the State Economic Development Office, through which a lot of the leads are generated that we can take advantage of. The result has been an operation that runs at a high level, managing the multiple crises caused by the embezzlement and bad business agreements that we inherited. At the same time, EDA is able to work on economic development opportunities that have the power to transform our community. I want to talk about the EDA management structure for a minute. Faced with more crises than we have board members, and boy, that is a true statement. A subcommittee structure was created to follow issues and to make recommendations to the entire board. We're able to keep up with a multitude of issues and not get overwhelmed as a result. It's working well, and what was a necessity for us should be a virtue for all future boards. With an active board to support him, Doug Parsons is able to devote most of his time to marketing and developing leads. When he has prospects, he's got professionals on the board he can turn to for support. Just a fact that EDA is too busy and too complex for one person to run it well, and it will remain this way into the future. This is just a suggestion. When the county board or the town council consider future EDA board members, please continue to recruit professionals with expertise in needed areas who are also willing to make the necessary time commitment to get the job done. So what makes for successful economic development? In our case, successful economic development should be a continual discussion between the county, town, and EDA about opportunities, risks, priorities, and messaging. We hope the efforts of the Board of Supervisors will create the atmosphere for fruitful conversations with the town and renewed cooperation in the future. We know for a fact that business growth will be negatively affected if companies are uncertain about the intentions of local governments. We have to find ways to minimize our differences and work together for our communities. There's an old saying, either we stand together or we'll hang separately. Sure is true here. There is a tendency to think of economic development as focusing on bringing in big companies who will hire lots of people for massive facilities. But here's the thing, 80% of new jobs come from existing businesses already in the locality, 80%. Dick Parsons spends a significant part of his day connecting with local businesses to see if we can help and if they are interested in expanding. He reviews the available incentive programs with them, offers suggestions, and works to help them meet their goals. He's working with two major companies who are located here on their plans to expand. And both companies are being courted by rival EDAs in other states. So we have to be on our ball. We have to keep working towards these goals. Small business loans are another part of our development strategy. Helping small businesses start and expand is a key element of our business retention strategy. We're reviving the USDA Small Business Loan Program, which focuses on funding needs that banks often shy away from, working capital, inventory, and the like. Microloans are typically under $20,000, and IRP loans can be as much as $150,000. We are creating the required USDA loan committee composed of 5 local residents to evaluate loan applications, vet the applicants, and make recommendations to the EDA board. Next week, officials from surrounding counties will come to the inland port to learn about how to combat the spotted lanternfly infestation that threatens regional agriculture and the transportation of goods. This is a joint effort of the Northern Shenandoah Valley Regional Commission, the Community Development and Tourism Department, and EDA. It will be the first in a series of meetings and outreach that will include farmers, home gardeners, shippers, and others. We're trying to get ahead of this issue to work on it to keep this infestation out of Warren County and the town of Front Royal and the resulting quarantine that would follow. On February 19th, we're hosting a commercial real estate open house event with the Community Development and Tourism Department and the Blue Ridge Association of Realtors to showcase EDA properties and other commercial properties for real estate agents in our area. They're excited for this opportunity and are one of the best resources for attracting new businesses here. Attracting businesses to relocate here is a process. Figuring out the best fits for our community, targeting those industries, and presenting our strengths in a way that makes Warren County and Front Royal stand out in a sea of possibilities. We have a compelling story to tell. Half the population of the United States is within an 8-hour drive of here, half of it. We're a major transportation hub with 2 railway lines that cross in Front Royal. 2 major highways connect in Warren County. The inland port is one of a handful of dry inland ports in the United States. Goods are transported 220 miles inland by rail to it, and from there can be distributed along the East Coast. Our area is a hot tourism destination for wineries, food, hiking, sightseeing, and of course the Shenandoah River. And we all know that's just the tip of the iceberg. Economic development at EDA is a series of joint projects. We're working with local colleges to document workforce available in our area, which is a critical piece for attracting business growth. The Northern Shenandoah Valley Regional Commission is very helpful, providing data on economic development trends. And a shout out to the RMA Unmanned Flight Operation Groups, which is providing aerial videos and photos, as well as 3D modeling of our sites and buildings. These are students working with drones, and they are doing really cool work. All the brochures, all the statistics and beautiful photos from these joint projects go into our website, brochures and outreach program. It's our version of We're Open for Business, welcome now. So, what industries are we concentrating our efforts on? Front Royal and Warren County are an excellent fit for data centers, like manufacturing, logistics and transportation, and healthcare companies, among others. These are industries that generate considerable business taxes and local jobs, but are unlikely to add much in the way of congestion or impact our environment. In addition to talking about how great our area is, we're taking concrete steps to make our properties more desirable for incoming businesses. Virginia has a tier rating system for assessing how ready commercial properties are for development. Is a property shovel-ready? Is the site zoned for the intended use? Is there a facility already built on the site? And so on. We're working to increase the tier rating on high-value properties to get them in the top 10% of commercial properties in the state to ensure that we are as competitive as possible for our target companies. The analogy for the tier rating system is what you do when you want to sell your home. You attract more interest when there's a fresh coat of paint on it, and you get more offers at higher prices when you make cost-effective improvements that help the house stand out from your competition. Tier rating is the same darn thing. As a final observation, the Virginia Economic Development Partnership is encouraging regions to work together on economic development issues. We're already working with neighbor counties to conduct research to identify the types of workers needed for our target industries. We're working with them on the spotted lanternfly infestation and look forward to future joint projects. As the gateway for the Northern Shenandoah Valley, having a regional presence will make us just that much more attractive. We know there's a lot of work to do and a lot of problems to fix. But there is also a lot of opportunity to right this fiscal ship and to grow our communities through strategic economic development. If we work together, we can make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're open for questions. and businesses.
Absolutely. Do we have any questions, gentlemen, ladies?
No, I'm just real happy and delighted that we can have a positive outlook, and we appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful presentation, and I'm glad that you had the opportunity to bring it to us. And then we got a fair amount of people in the audience to hear it. And I do want to say that I've been to a lot of your meetings, and I think Mr. Parsons is a great asset to this community, and we need to be patient and to give you guys the opportunity, now that you're on the track, to get around the track to win this marathon for us. So thank you all for the time you put into it. I know you put in a lot.
And I put in a lot, but I think everyone here put in
That's
a
what I
lot.
mean, you as a group.
Yeah.
And that includes Gretchen, because I think you two make an awesome team. And she does a lot too, I know.
Thank you, Jeff. I thought it was an excellent presentation, but I'd like to, it's, from what you're describing, it's a lot of information to consume.
Yeah.
But we can talk, and we're gonna have to roll up our sleeves to figure out how to maintain this agency for the foreseeable future. And so, $42,000 a month is what I heard, is that correct? If nothing happens, if nothing else occurs, $42,000 a month.
That's the operating, $40,000 for operating costs, but then there's the fixed cost of servicing the loans.
And the service loan, the debt service is how much per month?
Okay, so the total is 150,500.
Okay.
We're currently getting
42
42.
Back.
from IT Federal, so it's a little over 100,000.
So realistically, it's $145,000 a month to maintain the EDA for the foreseeable future, beginning in March,
Right.
realistically.
Yeah, until we start to sell properties, renegotiate loans and the like, yes.
Yeah, we're gonna need to talk a lot, we're gonna have to have a lot of conversations, it sounds like, but yeah. I mean, at least we know what we're dealing with, I wanna be realistic, and we have to know what we're dealing with, we have to be honest with the public, we have to be honest with ourselves about what is achievable and what isn't. But I appreciate the presentation and the positive outlook, because I think that, we might have a black eye, but that's all right, we can recover from a black eye. So, yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
One thing that kind of just hit me is a lot of people think that the EDA can just be dissolved. We've had enough, get rid of it. Can you explain why that can't happen? That whether we like it or not, we have to figure out something here.
When you take for shooting, what do you?
Short term, there are a number of companies have invested in this community. And they've invested through IDA bonds, which are industrial development bonds. And they are, and I said IDA, excuse me. And those bonds have the name, they do not have the full faith and credit, but they have the name of Warren County EDA on them, and they are issued through the EDA. And if you dissolve the EDA, all of those would immediately be callable. Now that's the real short answer. We are your agent. And yes, we are an independent entity, but we are also, number one, we're here to serve you and the town. And number two, you're financing us. And without that financing, if you decide you want to adjust the spigot, then that's going to adjust what we do and how we do it. But you can't just decide without paying all the debt. You cannot dissolve the EDA in its entirety.
If I'm understanding you correctly, that means that even if we wanted to dissolve it, we could not. Simply.
Without paying the debt, or the county assumes the debt.
Correct.
And I don't mean to be speaking for Mr. Mann or anybody else legally, but
I don't represent the EDA, but
15.24914 provides how you can dissolve a economic development authority, and one of the prerequisites is they have to have paid all their bonds.
And paid off all of their debt as well.
Right.
I mean, there's a difference between bond and debt.
Bond, no, that's the same thing.
It's the same thing, okay.
Bond is in reference to the Public Finance Act they have to comply with, but, it can be a note or a loan or anything that anyone in this room would consider a debt.
Okay.
And just to reiterate, we can't go bankrupt. So either the debts have to be paid off or the EDA has to continue. So they're there, they have to be dealt with. We hope to be a part of that solution.
You do get to decide how you want us to do it and how you want us to exist.
Right.
So you can think about some of that, and you can also look at what happens long-term with our finances, looking at our indebtedness. A great deal of that requires that we work with the town to resolve that. And we would again encourage the opportunity for two people from the board, because this board finances us, and 2 people from the EDA, and 2 people from the town to sit down and come to a solution to resolve these items. Nobody's going to walk away with everything they would like, but we can resolve it and move forward. We can't just slide in it forever. We've got to decide how we want to go, and however the community wants us to do that, we can do that, and we can move forward to promote economic development in Warren County and for what?
Well, I personally think that the town and the county need an EDA that's willing to be a total part of the community, to be talking on a regular basis, not butting heads, meeting all the obligations that both of us have, working through whatever problems that we have, and just dealing with the issues of the day. We are not getting anywhere by saying the town isn't doing what they're responsible for, or if the county is not doing what they're responsible for. We need to get together. And if getting together means 2 or 3 of us sitting down in a room together and fighting it out till somebody walks out, so be it. But we have to do something about it, and it has to stop quickly, because our EDA is going to go away, and it's going to be absorbed by the county, and we don't have to do it that way. And I hope the town and the county are listening, because every dollar that we spend on a lawyer is a dollar out of our pocket. And I'm a citizen of the town and a member of the county, and I don't want to pay any more.
One of the hard things which you mentioned was trying to get a handle on what exactly was owed to the EDA and what were the EDA's obligations. And we've spent this past year sorting all that out. But we're now much, much closer to where we can hand out something that tells you exactly where we are. And at some point, if there is a meeting, we'd be delighted to be invited and participate.
You will be invited, and you will be able to participate, I promise you.
Delighted to be there.
You have given us a list of properties.
Yes, sir.
You have a blank section that's appraised value. It's 2017 present. Are the numbers that we've got as an assessed value even close to what the property's actually worth?
Well, Mr. Parsons is going back and having the properties reassessed at the process now to be able to get a better appraisal, to be able to know what we can sell those properties for and what's a realistic number for them.
Are we even close to any of the numbers, Mr. Parsons?
We've had private appraisals done on 404, the apartments, the market building, and we've just awarded an appraisal after we got our 3 bids for the 1325 Progress Drive building. I don't know that we'll be able to sell the market or the apartments for what they appraise for, I think that our sales prices there should come close to the private appraised values. Most of our properties are not appraising for what the assessed value is. It's a little lower.
How about what we purchased them for? Is that an entirely different animal, or are we even close there?
Part of that depends upon when it was purchased. There are some properties on it that were purchased decades ago. And then there are properties that were purchased 5 years ago. And there's a very different in the relationship for your answer in those properties. So I wouldn't relate the value of the purchase price to the value today necessarily.
Okay, when can you expect getting us some more realistic numbers before budget time, or is it going to take longer than that?
Well, as far as the private appraisals, we can certainly plug the numbers that we have in now. A lot of these, some of the properties, for instance, on Leech Run Parkway are slivers and parcels that aren't terribly marketable because they were purchased for the right-of-way up the road. And we've got some pieces and parts, many of which are in the floodplain, so they're not terribly marketable, and I would be very pleasantly surprised if we were to be able to sell those for what they appraise, or what the tax appraised value is for. I'm glad to get you the private appraisal information we currently have. I can say, for instance, 404 Fairground was purchased almost 20 years ago for $141,500, if memory serves, and we're going to sell it for substantially more than that. So we'll see capital appreciation there. The market in the apartments, to give you an example on the other end of the spectrum, were purchased for over $500,000, and we are not realistically going to be able to sell the market in the apartments and reclaim the entire 500 on those. The market simply won't support that with the shape they're in. And so the other properties will fall somewhere in between on that spectrum.
And there's also the question of what was financed. We have bank loans against properties that the loans were much more recent than the purchase. And therefore, when these properties were reused to have a new loan, it was appraised, it was figured rather, evaluated much higher than what the original purchase price was and what it would assess for today. So you have to keep, that plays into what we can do with these properties also.
I look forward to seeing those numbers whenever you get them or can plug them in. And we'll be happy to share those with anybody that wants them. When you were talking about what type of business you're trying to bring into the county here, I know that Mr. Parsons is out looking actively for businesses and doing the economic development thing, so to speak. We need, this is just an observation, but we need some technical companies in this town. We've got a plethora of engineering, IT type people that run up and down the road every day, 50, 60, 70 miles away, and they 2 hours to work, 2 hours back every day, and they would love to stop doing it. And the only way that we're going to do that is to look for those companies that could come in, small groups, and start building a base in Front Royal. Can you tell me how you're going about doing that now? Because I see you doing a lot of work, I just don't know everything that you do, Doug.
Right. Well, as Jeff had mentioned,
You're welcome to come up if you want. I mean,
so given that we don't have a great deal of marketing budget per se, first of all, obviously we're working at the State Development Office where a good majority of our leads come from. I've reached out to the brokers, national brokers that I have met here. Also some of my old contacts from my old job in Northern Virginia.
We
They can't hear you in the
Oh, I'm
back.
sorry. So I've reached out to several of the national brokers, folks like Cushman Wakefield and C.B. Richard Ellis, and a lot of those folks, and they deal, especially on the 426 Ball Drive building. I think that's a good avenue to go there is to work with a national broker because they have the marketing budget we don't have to help promote property, for instance. So I've been working with those. I've reached out to the Virginia Maritime Association because obviously with the Ball Drive building being so close to the inland port, the Maritime Association works with companies who are in the import-export business. So I think there's a good possibility of coming into contact with some leads there. Past that, I think it's really going to depend on what kind of a budget that we have for marketing. Our website, I've been working with Jeff and Queen Consulting to look at how to redevelop our website. We've looked at some of our peers, such as Orange County and Augusta County, who have very well-developed, user-friendly sites for executives and for site selection consultants. So we're trying to gear up our website to make it more attractive. The video and so forth that we got through RMA, we're getting that video for free. They've offered to do a little work to add text and so forth and make them more of a marketing piece for a very low cost. So we're looking for opportunities to maximize the amount of money that we have to market our properties.
Let me make one other observation to your point on technology and having a lot of people here who would like to not have to commute. Workforce studies help give us a clear picture of what we have available in the area that becomes a marketing point that we'd be making to those types of firms as we're talking with them. So that as we gear our brochures, we gear the website, we gear our presentations to that type of company, because that would fall into one of the tiers we're definitely interested in. It's mining the workforce studies that we have and that we're in the process of acquiring new ones that will help us figure out how best to go after them. Then it's a question of marketing and having a great story to tell to them. And I think we have all the other attributes that allow us to make it an interesting place. The reason that all these technology professionals live here is because they love it here. And they want to stay here. And to be able to go to a technology firm and say, look, we have a whole bunch of people who love where they are. They are underserved in the jobs that they have. You can cut 4 hours out of their day and make them happy. In the process, that becomes a really attractive proposition for them.
Jeff, can I speak?
Yeah.
Thank you. Look, when there's a microphone and a camera and an audience, I'm going to be here. Chairman, maybe you have a great question there about technology. I commute via my home office, and it's never been better. My commute is 13 steps from my master bedroom down to my study. I think what we're dealing with here is a systemic issue. Technology companies, when they look at localities, they look at the school system, they look at the housing stock, they look at the leadership, they look at the services that are being offered. We're hitting on a few of those items, we're changing on a few of those items, and we're lacking sorely on some of those items as well. So while technology is good, they're going to be looking at other attributes that we might not be able to have to offer. Every locality needs to have a mix of industry in order to be successful. I read in the paper from Virginia Daily from Melissa Topi, Strasburg, the LSC plant is losing almost 400 jobs. They're closing that plant down. That is a huge hit to that community. That population is half the size of what we are, if not smaller. They don't have an EDA to help with that process. The entire Shenandoah County doesn't have an EDA to help with that process. So making sure that we have the proper blend and making sure that we have the proper leadership, the services, the schools, and the functioning institutions is what's going to bring those industries home. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Parsons, you're still around, okay.
I'm still here. One night.
When you put together your proposal and your budget, Ed, you and Mr. Parsons,
Sure.
And
Mrs.
Harold,
Martin is our chair of our finance committee, sir.
She did the
Live
lion's share.
comment.
I'm sorry, Joey, I forgot that you were here.
I know from some point.
When you put that budget together, please put some sort of realistic budget number in there for marketing, because we need that. You cannot market without a marketing budget. Now, I'll be the first to tell you, and anybody on this bench here will tell you the same thing, I believe, that you may want it and you may not get it, but at least we know what we could, if we have the extra money to give it, we can. And it is a piece of the pie that's important to our economic group. And be it the way that it is, or if it changes and morphs into something else, that's fine. We'll all work together, and we have to do that. The idea of 2 and 2 and 2 is a great concept, and I think that we'll push that a little bit further. And we've already had some conversations on that, because I go to your meetings every chance that I can go to. And I'm pleased that y'all are trying to do everything that you can to make it better. And for us to turn our backs on our EDA is ludicrous. We need you. So I appreciate your time, and we've got a few minutes left. If there's anybody in the audience that wants to ask a question, I believe that these guys will help you out. Yes, sir. And your name, please?
I'll come up.
Okay, great. Be prepared. This is a hard man.
Come on.
I'm Dennis David, 305 Kendall Court, Colorado, Virginia. I would like to ask the board to ask the EDA to give us a listing since the conception of the EDA, how much money the town and the county has given to the EDA and how much money they've brought back in. Simple economics. What's it cost us to get in the debt that we're in right now? How much have we given them? How much have they brought back to the county as of right now? Simple economics.
I understand the question, I believe. Mr. Parsons, can you help bring that together? And you may not be able to do it right this minute, because it's a pretty long question.
Right. I'll do, so the EDA has been around since 1965.
A microphone.
So the EDA has been around since 1965, and I'll do the best I can to see, over that 54 years, 5 years, how much has been given through the budget process. I'll try to work with Doug and budgets.
We need to say up front, sir, we don't have 50 years worth of budgets.
Correct.
So what the town did and what the county did and what the EDA did in 1963, I honestly do not know. And I don't have any record that's going to tell me. Now I can tell you 2018, I can look at 2015 and I can see a lot of the pieces. But I can't tell you 50 years ago, sir.
Hey, I have in my house every tax form that I filed since I was 16 years old. Okay? And if you're a business, don't tell me that there's no way of finding out unless you've discarded that information. There's got to be a good estimate. And my point is, and I think everybody here understands my point, I don't see the value from the EDA right now. I see debt. I don't see the industries flocking to Warren County.
If I may, I don't know if you remember Stephen Hevener, who was the EDA director, I want to say between 20 and 10 years ago during the early 2000s.
Vaguely.
Okay, so while he was director, Family Dollar, Interbake, Terray Plastics, and Cisco, he brought all those here. I think if you look at the real estate and the personal property taxes that have been derived from those businesses, there's a significant amount there.
And that's the information that we need.
Right, and so I think the revenues that have been derived from the companies that the EDA has brought in over the last 54 years, we may be able to come up with some figures on that. As far as what's been given to us in the budget or through those years, I'll do everything I can to try to cobble together all the years that we have that information.
Probably a good estimate.
And I'm not sure that we can realistically ask Warren County what Family Dollar contributed on some year 25 years ago. I'm not sure you have that number as far as their tax bill back at that time.
I actually have a spreadsheet. If we look at the last 10 or 15 years, we had a spreadsheet we maintained, looked at the major industry and what they net. Because remember, a lot of these businesses received incentives from the EDA or from the county through the EDA to locate here. We would look at, Torrey, for instance, they broke even about year 7 as far as revenue versus what we as a community incentivized them to come in. We built the road, we extended water and sewer to serve the site. Town and county, we gave the land to Torrey to locate here. So it took a while to recoup those funds on a project by project on those. Yes, we've got some of that information. And we can look at certainly I can look at what the county contributed to the budget over the years. So we can put some pieces together. It may not be a complete picture, but certainly we can give you some. Yeah, sure.
So if I can add to the question that the gentleman asked, it's a very good question, and it's a fair question. But it's not simple economics as we want it to be. I want things to be black and white. Believe me, I do. However, when we're talking about bringing a business into a locality, we're not talking about simple dollar for dollar item. There's an economic term called the money multiplier. And for every dollar that is spent in the community, it generates X amount of dollars toward the community. So if an industry brings in 100 jobs or 10 jobs or 50 jobs or whatever jobs it may be, that money flow in the economy continues to generate more money. That's the number that really needs to be evaluated when you're determining the value of an economic development authority. So for Mr. Parsons or the county to say, we've spent X amount of dollars on X industry and they brought in this amount of money is not really a complete picture of the total economic impact for the locality. There's much more math behind it, and there's much more economics behind it. I'd love to give you that number, and I think Mr. Parsons, as with anybody, would love to give you that number. We can give you hard facts, I'm sure, as they've indicated, but it's not going to be a really true picture of what it's done for the community.
Well, I'm just kind of looking like, if you were going to sell the EDA to someone else and say, or to us as citizens, just a nice glossy that says, these are the investments we've made in the community, these are the tax benefits we've reaped back from the employees that we've, that are paying taxes in the county. It's stuff that you would think that the EDA would want to put out there and let us know about. We kind of brag about it.
That's a great point. I can't disagree with any of that. Again, I just want to make sure that the answer is what you want, because the true dollar for dollar is not going to match. You have to look at the overall.
I think it would be a good defense for yourself to be able to say, look, this is what we've done over the last 20 years. This is what, just like you said, the Family Dollar, Torrey, the Inland Port, all of that is stuff that you need to brag about.
Well, I agree. If you look at things that are happening in Front Royal, or in Warren County, Target wouldn't be here if it was just for the group of people. It's here for the long term. It's the growth. It's the number of folks that come through town. Walmart's the same way. You don't build a superstore and expect 39,000 people that lives in, I don't know how many square miles that we are, but the numbers just don't look right. Somebody is looking at us and saying, big things are happening here, and we need to take advantage of it. And I think if Doug and the two Dougs can get together on some level and kind of put something together that would help people understand what's going on and what the benefit, the features and the benefits of this county are, I believe it would go a long way just to solve some of the ups and downs that this market is going through. And so it'll answer some of the questions that need to be answered for the people here.
Well, I think personally that, and if you stop and think about it, how many people, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, 80 years ago, 90 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, 400 years ago, 500 years ago, 600 years ago, 700 years ago, 800 years ago, 900 years ago, 1000 years ago, 2000 years ago, 3000 years ago, 4000 years ago, 5000 years ago, 6000 years ago, 7000 years ago, 8000 years ago, 9000 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, 400 years ago, 500 years ago, 600 years ago, 700 years ago, 800 years ago, 900 years ago, 1000 years ago, 2000 years ago, 3000 years ago, 4000 years ago, 5000 years ago, 6000 years ago,
really thought about the EDA before the scandal started. We didn't. It was doing its job. We all reaped the benefits of it because I grew up here. I can remember where what the sheriff's department there on Jackson Street was a little AMP. All your shopping was done between there and Main Street, and then lo and behold, we got grants. And maybe it was the EDA that brought the grants in, and the little shopping center where World King is now. And so over the years, I personally, from living here all my life, can see a lot of development and a lot of the prosperity, because our prosperity revolved around Avtex. So just like bringing up the plant that just closed in Strasburg, that's going to be devastating to them. Avtex was devastating to us. EDA helped get us through that by bringing in other enterprises to fill as much of that gap as they could. And we've all reaped the benefits of it for years. Then this scandal hit, and now we're all devastated by it and trying to figure it out. And we all have our own opinions as to how that should be done. But it didn't happen overnight, and we have to be patient and give you guys a chance. But I don't know the dollar amount to give you a dollar amount, but growing up here all my life, I see the benefits of what the EDA has brought. And I see the despair and the agony that it has brought us as well. But, you know, you can't just wallow in that. We've got to figure it out and move forward and to continue to prosper. And I think we can do that. I really do. Working together, I think we can. So I can't give you a dollar amount, but I can give you that thought in my head of when I think about what the EDA has done or what it hasn't done.
Thank you.
I have a question. Can I join?
Yes, please come on.
Christy Atwood, 1255 Pilgrim's Way, Bentonville, Virginia. My question is more of a kind of a Board of Supervisors, county, and the EDA. The EDA and the county, as well as the public school systems, has really muddied the waters. And if we were to let the EDA become insolvent and they would call the loans, Skyline High School is one of the properties that is collateral for these loans. And I know there's the ground lease at the 15th Street School that also is for one of the loans. And I think that's the questions that we need to ask is, why did Warren County's administration and the public school system allow those properties to be used as collateral? Because we could essentially lose those if the EDA were to dissolve and we couldn't make payments. We would be like Detroit, we would be bankrupt. And I think that's, we need to find out what Warren County, the town of Front Royal, the EDA owns, what is being used as collateral, and, do we actually have any money that's like profitable off any of that? I know Mr. Parsons was talking about some of the stuff off of Leech Run Parkway. A lot of the properties that the EDA has listed are no longer there. The parkway goes right through it. They purchased a bundle of properties from United Bank, and those properties, one of them was a 10-piece or a 10-acre piece of property that cannot be used for anything. It was part of a subdivision plat, and me being selling at auction many parts of subdivisions throughout Virginia, that's just something that was set on the tax books. But since the EDA owns it now, it's no longer taxed, so it's not making any money to the county, and the EDA has it, but they can't do anything with it. So, we really need to sit down and look at these properties and see what in the county and in the town is leveraged, because I believe that's where we're going to find the problem, and we need to find out who allowed that to be leveraged. Because from what I've read, you're not supposed to use the school as collateral. Thank you.
I would ask Mr. Stanley to correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe there's any county property that is currently under any of the EDA loans, with the exception of Leech Run, which is still an incomplete project, and we have some interim financing. But all of the county schools and so forth they're off the EDA books, and the county takes care of them.
That's correct. Yes, I think the question in regards to Leitron Parkway, there was a $6+ million loan that was taken out by the town and county through the county for Leitron Parkway. Of course, there wouldn't be a Warren County Middle School without Leitron Parkway because that road provides the access, and that's part of the schools. You have to provide collateral, but you have to provide properties that have enough value to provide that collateral. Like this facility, obviously it's only a couple $1 million, it wouldn't cover it. So yes, you have to collateralize some of the different loans through the process there with the RA. But we couldn't collateralize the Leitron Parkway, it's going to get turned over to the town to road. It really doesn't have a lot of sellable value. But at the end of the day, the town and county are back to those properties. But you're right, Mr. Daly, that a lot of the EDA stuff, you're using EDA lots at Stevens Industrial Park, at Happy Creek Industrial Park, and Avtex as your collateral for a lot of the loans that you have. So I don't believe any of the county properties are collateralizing the loans that you, as the EDA, have.
One suggestion, just for you to think about the future, when you think about how you want us to function in the future, is we should never be used as the lending mechanism for any public project, a school, etc. That type of thing, you should go to the banks directly, rather than having the EDA involved in the middle of that. And let us stick to what Mr. Parsons does best, which is economic development, attraction, and retention.
Thank you. Doug, do you have something else?
I have a comprehensive list of all of the collateralized, sorry.
Three times and you don't get to talk anymore.
Maybe the will and pleasure of the group. So we have 8 loans. The loan for the ball drive building is collateralized by the ball drive building. A nice normal loan with nice normal collateral. The IT federal loan is collateralized by the 117-acre parcel on the Avtex site. The combined loan has the following properties: the 23 and 53-acre sites at Stevens, a 66-acre tract at Happy Creek, what we call the NVA properties, and these are some of the slivers out there on Leech Run. In the Happy Creek, 404 Fairground Road and 400 Kendrick Lane. Those are the properties that are collateralized for the combined loan. On the Avtex loan, there's no collateral. On the line of credit through First Bank and Trust, there's no collateral. On the Leech Run loan, there's no collateral. On the Front Royal Police Department loan, there's no collateral. I'm glad to share this list with you.
Please do. Yes, sir.
Jim Jett, I'm from 200 Kennel Court. I'm listening to all of this, and I'm kind of trying to think that maybe we ought to start tempering some of this long-range planning. We need to start looking also at building a base from within Warren County as far as our economic development. I've seen too many communities around the country that go hog wild, bring these fantastic buildings in, bring these companies in, like AOL, Amazon, put in these monster buildings out here, bring in, get 5,000 workers out there, and then collapse. Houston, Texas is a good example. How many thousands of people went out when the oil companies went out of there? I think we need to watch that and temper us to get both, not only without of the county, but within the county. We need to look at the foundations. What are we going to do to build within the county? Bring it up. You also need things like, to do that, to bring in the outer side. I was one of those commuters for a long time. We moved out here because we wanted to. Gave us a way to get out of the city. We create the city out here. What have we done? We haven't moved out. Now you're going to have everybody moving out of here. But if you're going to do that, you got to get your airport better so that people can fly in here if they have to for work. You're going to have to connect rail lines into here that actually has a rail line runs out to here, because people aren't going to drive. You're going to bring that much more people out here on the roads. 56, they just haven't figured out yet that you can't take 4 lanes, neck it down to 2 lanes and not have a traffic jam. I just don't understand why they can't get that figured out yet. It's going to happen here. Our infrastructure is not ready to support that. To try to do it ahead of time is not, if we can get the infrastructure ahead of time, fine. But we've got to look at that when we start marketing this county. So my premise here is think. Let's just not go running wild, bring in something that's not going to happen, or that's going to be a flash in the pan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've listened, and I hear a lot of things that people are saying, and I know you want to say some additional, and you're welcome to. You can come on up and do that.
Okay. Well, the Leach Road Parkway has not been finalized, I believe is what they just said.
That's correct.
Okay. The VRA, the Virginia Resources Authority, this was a pooled project for the Leach Run Parkway. And in here it says, for the collateral of Leach Run, the borrowing will be secured by Skyline High School located at 151 Skyline Vista Drive, Front Royal. So do we not have do we owe that $6,500,000?
We owe the money, it's being, we're current on the loan payment, the town
Right.
pays it, share we pay.
But is Skyline High School not collateral for that?
If it should, yeah.
That's what it says.
And we wouldn't have the middle school without.
That doesn't matter. I read that you're not supposed to use any kind of educational properties or anything within the school divisions as collateral. That's against the Virginia statutes. And the way that the EDA has been muddied, the way that the properties have been like passed through there, like, just like, that was just a pass through, that's the problem. And before I step down, I just have one more question. In regards to the Cherry Becker report and the Sands Anderson lawsuit, they're asking you for over $100,000 a month for their debt service. How much were you paying a month for Sands Anderson? This lawsuit's not going to get us anywhere because it's on a scoped, limited investigation that was halfway done, that is not correct, and we're paying them over $1 million. We need to find out who hired Cherry Becker, why they were hired, who brought them in here, and who scoped this investigation. Because it should not have been scoped. It should have been, please come in here to the Virginia State Police. That would not have cost us a dime. But we've spent over $600,000 to Cherry Becker for the investigation that was done to protect the certain few, and now we're up over $1 million to Sands Anderson. Sands Anderson, the same people that have been in here and done the VRA, that have been in here and pooled our properties and have helped leverage Skyline High School and other places. We need the truth. And I ask for you guys to now call in to the Virginia State Police and ask them to come and look at the books. I'm sure things have grown legs, but it's not too late. You need to stop paying for the Sands Anderson monthly fees because we're not going to recoup any of that money. We're throwing good money after bad. And if you've got to make the EDA payments, then we're going to have to do something. But I ask for you guys to take control of that and to get a handle on it and get a real investigation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed?
Is the VRA loan a EDA loan, sir? It's not an EDA loan.
It went through the EDA.
Not the VRA, ma'am.
Yes, it did. I have the email.
It's not a VR, it's not an EDA loan, period. It's not an EDA loan.
Any additional comments? Mr. Gillespie, did you have a question or comment? Okay. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I don't have a question, but the VRSA, which is a a bonding company that we're trying to get the loan through, hopefully, to pay the EDA the money for the police department. But what it is, what she is saying is not correct to the point where we as a body approve that to go through the EDA, but it's not a loan through the EDA. It comes directly through the VRS, it used to be VRS, now it's VRSA, I believe it's called. And so you're right, Mr. Ed, that is not a loan that is back through the EDA. They're just the processing fee for the fiduciary office that takes care of it like they did with us, with the police department and some of the other projects that we're doing, including the Leech Run Park.
Thank you. That helps me. Any additional questions or comments from anybody? Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Our next meeting is at 8 o'clock next Friday. Delighted to have you.
And that's open to the public too.
Yes, sir. Happy to have anybody like to come.
I go every chance that I get. It's a good meeting. It shows that they're trying to do better. And that's what it all amounts to. AM. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having us.
We've spent a little over an hour on this, and it's been a great conversation and great input from everybody. We thank you a whole lot. Our next item on the agenda is the request for reimbursement of legal fees and expenses for the Board of Directors of the Economic Development Authority. Ed, do you have any additional comments or?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. And we're open for discussion here on the board. And then as we finish this, we'll open it up for the outside people to comment. Archie, do you have anything?
Yes, I'm concerned about, especially the one amount, if we're talking about the.
Absolutely.
It's the 10,000 for Mr. Greg Dresser. It seems like it's quite high, much twice as high as some of the other amounts, and that concerns me. And I don't know what we can do, but it is a concern. If we do decide to fund this request. That's all I have.
Mrs. Cole?
This has been an absolute agony for me. I think about this probably more than anybody realizes, and I'm still struggling with it, to be absolutely honest. I appreciate this board very much, and I appreciate the time and the effort you put into it, and I feel like being a volunteer situation that you're not doing it for the money, that's for certain. And at the same time, I don't feel like some of the people that got snapped up in this should have, just as a personal opinion. And I wish that there was able to pick and choose, and that's not a possibility at all. So I hear the taxpayers that don't want us to pay this. I do. And then I feel an obligation to support you because you are doing this as a volunteer. So that is where my agony is. So I'll leave it there. I'm still agonizing.
Dolores, your turn.
Well, I would like to ask Mr. Ham to explain the legal obligations of this board. So there's a code in Virginia that allows us to pay for, I believe it's officials appointed or otherwise. And so if you could explain that, because I'd like to understand it better myself, and I'd like for the community to as well.
Certainly, yeah, there's two statutes on that, and I think one or both of them were used to reimburse the board members with respect to the criminal defense costs. Those statutes don't apply here because those statutes apply to our board members, and the EDA is a separate entity. Instead, it's a separate statute. It's in the EDA Act 15.2 4900. Somewhere in there, I have read this within the last month, the county is allowed to give money to the EDA. So the way this works is that the county doesn't have the legal ability to directly pay for the legal fees for these individuals that work for the EDA because it's a separate entity. You can't do that. But the EDA can, and that's what the EDA's resolution says, is that we want to pay for the legal costs of our members and former members, but it also has the caveat, but only if Warren County gives us the, whatever, slightly less than $40,000. So that's where it becomes kind of de facto into your lap, but legally you can't pay it. But you can give money to the EDA, and the EDA has made it clear that that's what they're going to do with it. Now, you asked another question, I think, of is there some legal obligation or duty to do this? There is no legal obligation to do this. We along with Front Royal years ago, formed the EDA. It can't be dissolved. So, there's no legal duty that says this must be paid. Having said that, you've got smart people who are working for free, and these aren't the only smart people working for free that you want to recruit. You all have just started, but probably most months you're going to be talking to Doug about finding people to go on the EDA board, building code board, zoning appeals, a bunch of other boards. And there's a lot of people in Warren County, but will it have a chilling effect on, okay, I'm a retired banker, I'm not going to volunteer for that organization, God knows what happens. So, there's no legal duty to do this. It's just a question of what is the best thing for Warren County, and that's for you to decide.
Is there a cap? Can we put a cap? For instance, you have an outlier, a clear outlier of a double the amount of the rest of the fees. Is there a possibility to cap that number? Is that within our purview?
Well, you could give them less than what they've asked for.
Okay.
I don't know what they would do with that. And as far as is there some reason why his is twice as much as the rest? I don't know that. I know he was the chairman. Maybe he was involved in more stuff. Don't know. I can tell you that happened as well with respect to the criminal action against the former and some current board members, that's something that happens sometimes. Some lawyers will do flat fees for things that, the fact that it's such a round number, I'm speculating here, but I know that happened last time. So, some lawyers will charge X dollars an hour, and, the bill is whatever the bill is. Some lawyers will charge X dollars total. And if it gets done early, which this did get done early, well, then they're going to make more. If it gets done slow and it goes on longer, then they're taking the risk of that. And then, of course, the client gets the benefit of a certain price. I don't know why Greg Drescher's is $10,000 and others aren't. I'm speculating that might be the reason. Maybe it'd be reasonable to ask him.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. So if we decide to go forward with this, could we put a limit on what we would contribute to the EDA to cover these expenses?
Yes, you can give them less than what they've asked for. What's the total is a little bit less than 30. Sorry, I said a little bit less than 40,000. A little bit less than 30. A little bit less than 37,000. So you could give them 30,000. I don't know what they would do with that because they've made it pretty clear that this is what they're intending to do. So if you gave them less, I don't know exactly what they would do with that. But the board has the ability to pay all of it or none of it or anything in between. But if you were going to pay something in between, it might be good to have a dialogue with the EDA to, well, you know, if we pay part of it, what would you do? Because all you're doing is giving the EDA money. You don't have control over what the EDA spends it on. Now, they've told you in this circumstance, if you pay the little bit less than 37, we're going to do this. If you pay less than that, I don't, you know, it would be up to them to decide what to do with this. Now, they want to maintain a good relationship with you, so maybe that's the way to deal with this.
Sure.
Ed, did you have something that you needed to say?
Just very briefly, sir, in response to that question, we will be very appreciative of any support you can give to our members, because as what Mr. Ham mentioned there, it runs the question for some of us who are not involved in that, well, what happens next week when somebody files something? And so there is a concern that people be supported if they're volunteers on these committees. Now, and doing an illegal act, that's separate. We take that apart. I'm not talking, but just serving on there, suddenly you're charged with something. And so we would want to follow any direction that the board wanted to make, requesting that we wanted to provide X dollars instead of the 37,000, and we would like to see it capped, as one example you mentioned, or it averaged, or whatever you wanted to direct. We would want to follow those directions, because we're your agent. We're not out here on our own. We're all in this together. Thank you.
Additional question?
I thought to try to split the road here to make everyone happy, the EDA would be paying these bills themselves if they had the money to do so, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So if we were to loan you the money with the stipulation of when your boat is upright and everything is, and you're able to refund that, would that be a possibility? So that the taxpayer, if it was my money, I wouldn't have a problem, but the taxpayers are speaking. I promised one thing, to work hard for the people and to do the right thing, and this is where my agony is. To do the right thing for one group is not going to feel right for the other group. So to make it, would that be a possibility?
I think you could put any provisions, any stipulations or restrictions, whatever that you wanted to. Number two, we point out that the taxpayers via the town and the county have been supporting the EDA, and the EDA has been developing the community and increasing the tax revenues for the last 60 years. And so there will probably, when those sheets that you have with our debt service, etc., when those go away, there will still be some type of a budget allocation from the county to the EDA that is going to be there like it has been in all prior years. We're not intended to be totally self-supporting, because we shouldn't be generating that much revenue. We should be sticking to the knitting and focusing on attracting and developing, expanding business. So in future years, if you see that we are essentially solvent with your support, and you decide you're going to reduce your allocation and put that money back to the taxpayers, you may do that. How's that for an answer to what you're saying? Am I going to give you a check? You just give me less.
Well, I'm just,
Yes.
But
you can do that in the future, that when there is funding available to pay more of the activities with EDA funds and less from support from the taxpayers. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
The aggravation, and maybe aggravation is the wrong word, I know it's the wrong word, but
The heartburn.
the heartburn that you have with people telling us to do one thing or asking us to do another thing, and us having to make that judgment call without having input from people like yourself that are living it, and the people that work with you that are living it. I want to be able to have good, strong, solid people on the EDA, and if we don't do something that's a positive note, we will hurt our community. And I don't want to hurt our community. And
Appreciate that.
it is a fight emotionally because we're affecting people's lives on some level, and it's agonizing. Cheryl said it best, that, you know, she's trying to think of it in every way that she can, and you're always right in the middle of the road. And now we've got to come to a decision on January 21st what we're going to do.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? You're more than welcome. Mr. Jett? Y'all are sure quiet tonight, too. Thank you.
The reason probably that we're real quiet, this is the first time we've actually been able to speak.
There'll be more.
Thank you.
There'll be
Thank
more
you.
just like it.
I appreciate it. I agree with you. I understand where you're coming from. I've been tossing this thing around myself. You kind of set this board has set, not you guys, not all of you. You kind of set a precedence for it with the board's prior paying for its own lawyer's fees out of the thing. You've kind of set the precedence for it. My feeling is, and I didn't say much about it at that time because, again, if the defendants are cleared, I have no problem with paying for their legal fees. However, if they're found liable for what they've done, that they are found guilty, then why should I pay for their legal fees? That's my situation where I'm at. I understand that they have to pay the legal fees as they're going along, and they're going to have to come up with the money while we're waiting for this, while the courts have to go through this. I understand the hardship. I've gone through it with several things that I've done. But I don't understand why I have to pay for it ahead of time, and I'm not going to get that back, regardless. The idea of loaning it, that's fine. But I still feel that even loaning it at this point in time, for that, knowing that's where it's going, that gives me heartburn.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask a question of the attorney. Were these cases dismissed against the EDA during the trial, during the time that we went to court?
Yes, all of this has been dismissed, and none of them are pending. So,
Okay.
Additional comments? Questions? As you can see, this is a dilemma that we're going to have to meet together, and it will affect people. And we want to be as clear and concise with our answer as we possibly can be. We will not please everybody, and we don't expect to, but we want to do what's right for the county and right for the people that did the work or didn't do the work. So I thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
can I speak, please?
Yes, sir.
As one of the board members not impacted by the suit, I empathize and sympathize with my cohort. This would be, in my opinion, a much more difficult decision if the charges were actually based upon Virginia statute. But the charges were not based upon Virginia statute. The charges came from another country hundreds of years ago. They should have never been filed to begin with. shame on the Commonwealth Attorney for doing that and putting these fine people in financial harm's way. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comment? Seeing none, we're going to consider this matter closed. We'll be voting on this on the 21st.